Hey friends, welcome back. Now that we covered treasury bills and high interest savings ETF, it's time for us to talk about the good stuff. This is something that is life changing. It can really change your investment returns over the long term. And if legendary investors do it, like we saw in our previous classes, if Warren Buffett does it, you can do it too. You can replicate the exact same strategy to make the most out of investments. Now, a lot of people think that this is risky when you talk about options, and I'm going to be very honest with you. If you do it right, if you do the way I'm going to teach you, there is absolutely no risk, and it's not rocket science. It's super easy, it's super straightforward, and at the end of the day, there are many option strategies out there, but for value momentum investors, we can keep it simple. Just stick to two strategies, and you guarantee yourself great long-term results. So look at this slide over here. You basically have two types of options. You have the put options and you also have the call options. And you can do two things for each of these types. You can sell it or you can buy it. So in the case of a put, you can sell a put, which is also named as shorting a put or writing a put. Everything means the same thing. Everything means selling a put. And you can also long a put, which is the same thing as buying a put. Now, for calls, it's pretty much the same thing. You can sell a call, or short a call, or writing a call. And you can also buy a call, which is the same thing as longing a call. Sounds simple, right? You basically have two types of options, puts and calls, and you have two things that you can do with them, sell or buy it. But let's make it even more simple. Out of all of this, the ones that we need to focus as a value momentum investor are just two. We're basically going to focus on being a seller, right? So the first one, you're going to sell a puts. So in your case, you're going to be selling a cash secure puts. We're going to talk about this later in this class. And you're also going to be focused on selling covered calls, which is the same as selling a call. So out of all of this, we just have to focus on two. That's all. That's all you need to know. So basically, to boost your returns and learn how to make double-digit returns in the market while waiting on cash, or even while waiting, holding that stocks that you love, that you like, you just have to learn two strategies. Cool? Now, before we jump into all the details on how you can use these strategies to boost your returns, let me explain you how each of these options work. Let me actually give you a kind of an overview so you see all the details, how everything works, and it's going to be easier later on for me to explain you these techniques that is going to change your investment returns over the long term. So from those two option types that we talked before, the calls and the puts, let's give you a head start with the put options. So imagine a situation that you own a great business like Nike. You have the stock. But the thing is, you saw using technical analysis that we learned in previous classes that the market will experience a downtrend, or maybe the market is in a downtrend right now. So you want to protect your assets, like these Nike shares that you own. You don't want for it to lose too much value on these downtrends that the market is experiencing. So you want the Nike, as the price now is $60. You don't want it to keep going down. You want to make sure that if the market falls, your overall portfolio will still be valued with Nike at $60. This means that you need insurance. It's like, think about those house insurance, car insurance that maybe you even haven't. If something happened, let's say to your car, God forbid, but let's say if there is a crash, are you going to lose the money you put in the car? No. If you have insurance, you're fine. Same thing, for example, if you own Nike shares. If the market starts going down and you have the insurance for Nike at $60, you're fine, because even if it happens, even if the market goes down, and now maybe Nike is valued at $40, you still can sell your shares for $60 as long as the put option that you bought is still active and the expiration date didn't arrive. Even if your car, let's say, now talking back about the cars, even if your car got completely wrecked, or in this case with Nike shares, they dropped to zero, which is highly unlikely because company Nike, it's a great company, great business, getting better and better over time, making more money. So very unlikely scenario, but even if it happens, you would still be able to sell your shares at $60, even though the stock price of Nike is 0 right now. So that's actually how this insurance, how buying put options work. Now, maybe you're asking about the other side of the coin. Would this be risky? Because we are talking about the buyer, right? The person buying an option, buying this insurance. But what about the other side of the coin? The person that is actually selling this insurance. Because think about it. You have a contract between the buyer of the puts and the seller of the puts. The buyer is basically saying, look, if the shares drop below $60, I want to sell my shares at 60 to the seller. But if the shares stay above 60, if they go up, if they go sideways, I want to keep my shares and I'm going to pay insurance fee, which we call the option price or option premium for the service that the seller is providing. Is this a risk to the seller? And it would be, but if you don't have, let's say, cash on your accounts, if you don't want to own the stock, if you're dealing with penny or risky stocks, and if you don't know how to calculate the fair value of a company, which you actually learned in your previous classes. But remember, we actually learned all of that, and I'm going to teach you a method that there is actually absolute no risk. That's why it's called selling cash secure puts. Because this is actually a strategy that the best investor of all times, Warren Buffett, makes a lot of money using this exact strategy of selling insurance to other investors. And he's very risk averse. So if he does it, you should also do it, and you learn how to do it in a way that there is no risk, since you're going to be doing it with great businesses that you want to buy the share anyways, and you're going to have cash in your accounts in case the shares get assigned to you and you have to purchase. For example, with Warren Buffett, if he sells puts and the stock goes up, is he fine with it? Of course, he's making money through premiums. Remember, whenever he actually sells a put, he automatically collects the premium that the buyer is paying, right, for the insurance. So if the stock goes up, is he fine with it? Yes. What about if it goes sideways? Is he fine with it? Yes, because he's still collecting those premiums. And what if it goes down? Well, if it goes down, he's also fine with it because he wanna buy that stock at that strike price of the option anyways, and he still gets to stay with the premium. So you see how this can be a win-win situation? Now, if you think about insurance company, how do they make money? They do that by collecting fee for the insurance they're providing every month, every year, and you hope that nothing happens so they can keep collecting those fees without paying anything back. And the process is very similar for stocks. You can keep selling puts to the buyer and collecting these premiums. For example, with Nike shares, if they stay at 60, which is the strike price, or if they keep going up, you can keep collecting those premiums without having to buy anything or buy the shares. You can just keep collecting it. And different from the insurance company, they actually lose money if the car gets damaged. If the share price of Nike actually goes down below 60, you are fine with it because you want to buy the company at that price anyways. And also, although for a house or a car insurance company, you should own a car or a house, otherwise there will be no point of actually having insurance. With options, you actually don't need to own anything. But like I'm going to tell you the reasons later, I would highly recommend you to actually own something. So let's say whenever you are a seller, for example, a seller of a puts, you should have the cash available if you actually have to buy the shares. If you are a seller of a call, so in this case, you should actually own the shares itself. And we're going to talk about call options a little bit later in this class. But whenever you're a seller, you should own an asset, or it's cash, or it's a stock, but you should own something. That's how you can do it without risk safely, and you can enhance your returns over the long term. So just as a summary, if you are a put buyer, you are bearish in the stock because you're expecting the stock to go down. Think this way, if you are buying a put, you are putting the shares away, you're putting the stock away. So it means that you are bearish. That's a kind of a nice way to remember. Now, as a put seller, which is the opposite side of the coin, although you are fine on buying the stock at that strike price of the option, you want the shares to stay flat or keep going up so you can keep collecting those premiums over and over again. Now, if you think a situation that, let's say you you're a put buyer. You are a put buyer at a strike price of $60 for Nike. And then the company falls during this period that you're holding the option, it falls to $40. Then you have the right to sell the shares at $60, which is the option price, even though the stock price right now is selling for $40. Or instead of actually selling the shares for 60, you can, instead of dealing with, handling the shares, selling your position, instead of doing that, you can also trade your option contracts. Just because, think about it, if you have the option, a contract that you can sell shares of Nike in this example at $60, but now the stock price dropped to $40, this has some value. This is valuable to the market. Imagine if you can sell this option contract to someone else, and this other person can sell the Nike shares that the person has at 60, while the market now is valued at 40. So this has value to other people, and that's exactly what you can do. So, or you can actually sell your shares for 60 while the market values at 40, or you can actually sell the contract for someone else that allows the person to sell the shares at 60. So you have one of these two options. Now, as a matter of fact, most people, they go with this option of trading option contracts, right? Of basically giving the other person the right to sell the shares at $60. And if you think about it, whenever you are buying a put, you are buying at some option price at the time. But if the price of the stock goes down, the value of these puts goes up a lot because it becomes much more value. Imagine if this opportunity of selling the Nike shares at much higher prices than the market is valuing right now. So instead of just trading the stock, you can just sell this contract that you have so the other person can do what you would do. Now, just to summarize everything that we talked so far regarding put option, let's actually go through this slide here. So the definition of a put option contract is that the contract gives the buyer the right to sell, and these are very important words, right to sell 100 shares. And this is 100 shares because one option contract is equivalent to 100 shares of that particular stock or that particular ETF. But this is for US companies, US, Canadian companies. Now, depending on which country you're dealing with, so let's say you are going with a Hong Kong exchange, then it's a little bit different. Then in this case, depending on the company, the size of the contract, how many shares you are handling, is going to be different. So for example, for Alibaba, not the BABA, the American Depository Receipts, but the 9988 traded in Hong Kong, this one is totally different. One contract is equivalent to 1,000 shares. But most of the times, you're actually going to be dealing with the US markets. So this is just standard for all companies. It's going to be one contract is equivalent to 100 shares in the US market for that particular company or for that particular ETF. Okay, so if you continue reading, so it's a contract that gives the buyer the right to sell 100 shares per contract. So one contract, 100 shares. Two option contracts, 200 shares. 300 shares, and so on. So it gives you this right to sell 100 shares at a strike price before or on the expiry date. So there are basically two sides of the coin here. So we have the buyer side and you have the seller side. The buyer is the one that pays the premium. The seller is the insurance company we talked before, which receives this premium. So as a buyer, you have the right to sell 100 shares to the seller at a strike price. So just as an example, this is how an option contract would look like for the buyer. So this one, whenever you actually put on the broker, it's going to show exactly like this. So first is the definition, if you're a buyer or seller. So in this case, you're actually a buyer, as you can see here. Now, how many contracts you are dealing with? Remember that for each contract, you are handling 100 shares. So here, one contract is equivalent to 100 shares. So in this case, the number of option contracts here is 1. So we are just buying one contract of which stock? Of Nike. So this is the ticker of Nike. And then remember when I talk about the expiration date. So options, they don't last forever. Whenever you buy or whenever you're a buyer of option or a seller of option, there will be expiration dates of these option contracts. And these expiration dates, you are the one that is actually going to choose. And you're actually going to see some examples on the broker using the interactive broker. You're going to see how everything works. It's very straightforward. But the broker is going to give you a couple options on what are the expiration dates available. And it's always going to be the Friday of the week or the third Friday of the month. What do I mean by that? So usually the options that I trade and I recommend you trading are the monthly options or the quarterly options. These are the ones that have the highest liquidity, which is, it's called open interest. We're going to go through all of that. But by now, just keep in mind that for all the options, you have expiration dates. And for monthly and quarterly options, it's always going to be the third Friday of the month. And then you also have the weekly options, which is the Friday of the week, right? So you have options ending this week, which is going to be Friday, the next week, which is going to be Friday of the next week, and so on. But at the end of the day, I recommend you always going with monthly or quarterly options, which expire at the third Friday of the month. And I recommend you going with those because these ones are the ones that have the highest liquidity. So it's very easy for you to get in and also get out of a contract if you need to. So like in this example here, we are going, the expiration date is November 17th, 2003. This one is the third Friday of the month. And what's the strike price? And this is the price of the option. Remember that this is the reference. Or if the buyer is gonna just pay the premium and the option is gonna expire worthless, if the stock goes up beyond this value, or if the stock stays sideways, or if the stock goes down below the strike price, then the shares, the buyer has the right to sell his shares to the seller. So this is the strike price, the reference price. Okay, so in this case it's $60. And we even already mentioned a couple examples of these $60 of Nike shares. So this is exactly how the option will look like. And this is the type of option, which in this case is a put. You have puts and you have calls. And this is the premium. So this, for the buyer, is how much he's paying for the option price. So he's paying 2 per share. Remember that this is for 100 shares. So since this is for 100 shares, he's not paying $2. He's paying $200. And then the seller is receiving this $200, right? So instead, for the seller, the only thing that is gonna change right here is this. So instead of showing buy, it's gonna show sell here. So look at the difference. You see, so this is for the buyer, this is for the seller. Everything else it's similar. Okay, so in this case, just going back here, for these option contracts, the buyer has the right to sell 100 shares of Nike to the seller at $60, paying $200 premium. And what the buyer wants from that? Well, in this, whenever you're buying a put option, you're expecting the stock to go down. So you want the stock to go down because then, if the stock goes down, you can actually sell the shares at $60 whenever the Nike shares is much below, let's say the $40 example. If the stock price of Nike is $40 right now, and you have the option to sell at $60, this option contract becomes much more valuable, and you can sell at higher prices to other people, or even sell the shares that you have for $60 while the market is valuing at $40. And in this case, if the price goes down, then the option can be exercised, and the option value, of course, that increases, because you're basically giving people the option to sell the shares at $60 while the market is valuing the Nike shares at $40. Now, on the other side of the coin, you have the seller, the guy that receives the premium. And that's how like we mentioned before, that's how the option contract looks like. So the seller is a little bit different. Remember that the buyer has the right to sell 100 shares. The seller, on the other hand, he's obligated to buy 100 shares from the buyer at the strike price. So he's obligated to buy, in this case here, 100 shares of Nike from the buyer at $60, receiving $200 premium. But he's not going to buy at any condition. So he's gonna buy if the shares actually go below, because remember, this is insurance. If the buyer, let's say whenever the buyer does that, does these option contracts, whenever he puts it in, he's basically saying that, okay, if the Nike shares stay sideways or if it goes up, then I'm okay just keeping the shares and I don't want anything, because at the end of the day it doesn't make sense, right? So let's say that what happens when you buy a put option? You can sell the shares at, in this case, at $60. Well, if the shares go to $70 in the market, what's the point of me selling at 60 if I can sell at market at 70? So the option is just worthless. There is no point of having the option. So that's why it expires worthless. So the buyer just paid the premium, the seller received the premium, and nothing happened. Now, if the stock price goes below the strike price of the option, then the seller is obligated. It's not a right. Who has the right is the buyer. He has the right to sell, but the seller is obligated to buy the 100 shares of Nike from the buyer at $60, receiving $200 premium. The fact that he's receiving the premium, it doesn't change. If the stock goes up, if the stock goes sideways, if the stock goes down, he can keep the premium anyways. The only situation that changes is that if the stock goes down, then he's obligated to buy from the option buyer. That's all it is. So what the option seller wants at the end of the day? Well, he wants to actually continue getting premiums, right? Like an insurance company. So he wants the stock to go up, like this, or the stock to go sideways. Now, we as value investors, it doesn't really matter even if the stock goes down, because we want to buy the stock anyways. That strike price they put it is usually the fair value that we calculated in our intrinsic value calculation. So we want to buy the stock at that price anyways, because we're dealing with good companies selling at fair value, right? So you can actually have great returns over the long term. So at the end of the day, whenever you talk about a seller, technically you want the stock to go up or go sideways, so you can just keep receiving that premium, and then you keep getting your cost basis, let's say, of the stock down, keep getting cash. But if the stock goes down, it's not the end of the world. You want to buy the shares anyways. So that's the win-win situation that I mentioned before. So in this case, if the stock price goes up beyond the $60 or stay at 60, the option expire worthless and the seller can keep the premium. Now, one thing I want to mention here is that we're going to discuss even more in detail later, is that if you're a seller of a put, you want to have the cash aside to buy the stock, 100 shares of the stock, in case you assign the shares. You don't want the situation of, let's say you don't have the cash and then the stock goes down to 40, you have to buy at 60, so $60 times 100 is 6,000. And then let's say that you don't have $6,000 on your account, you're going to have to use margin. And in this case, margin is very expensive now that the interest rates are high. So you don't want this situation to happen. For you to play safe, to be a no-risk situation, just win-win situation, you have to sell a cash secure puts, which means that you have to have cash aside in case you have to buy the shares. And one more thing is that depending on the broker, the way that they show the option contract, it changes. Nothing changes on the concepts, everything they explain, it stays the same, but the way that the contract shows, sometimes it varies. So these formats here that I'm showing to you here, this one is that it's for Interactive Broker. That's exactly how they're going to show it. Now, sometimes there are some brokers that they actually simplify all of this here, they simplify it a bit. Instead of putting, and this is just the only change is usually the expiration date and on the at here. So in this case, I even put some examples for the put seller. And the put buyer is going to be the same thing. The only thing that changes is this first word here, right? Like we saw before. If it's the buyer, it's just going to have buy here. Okay? Now, what are the changes here? The change just on the expiration date, because you know that for a monthly and a quarterly option, it's always going to be on the third Friday of the month. So instead of putting November 17, 2023, some brokers are just going to put November, as you can see here. And then the other thing that may change is just the symbol, the at. Instead of having this symbol here, they just write it at. but everything else the same, all the prints are the same. It's just the way that they show the contracts on the system. Now, just so you understand more visually everything, how it works, let's actually go through two situations, the same scenario of you are basically having an option contract with a strike price of $60 for Nike, and the premium is $200 for 100 shares, right? So it's just one option contract. So I have two situations here. One is as a buyer and the other one is as a seller. So let's analyze the put buyer first, which is the left side. So here it's how the option contract looks like, the same way that it did here. It's how it looks like here, right? So it's the same scenario. So if you see, that's how the graph or the chart looks like, right? So it looks a little bit confusing, but it's actually very straightforward. So let's actually start with the premium. How much actually the buyer is going to have to pay as premium? Very simple. So the option price or the option premium is 2. How do you calculate how much he's going to have to pay total for him to have the right to sell these 100 shares at $60 for the seller if the shares go down? How he actually can purchase this contract? Well, he has to spend $200. Why? Because it's $2. One contract is equivalent to 100 shares. So it's 2 times 100 is going to be $200. And actually now let's consider some scenarios here. So you know that the strike price is $60. Let's consider a scenario that the stock price goes up to $80. In another scenario that the stock price goes down to $40 within the timeline of the contract, which expires on November 17th, 2023 in this case. So let's actually go first on the scenario that the stock price fell to $40. What's going to happen? So in this case, the buyer, he has the right to sell 100 shares to the seller if the stock price falls below $60. And what's the break-even point? So the break-even point is basically the amount that remember that the buyer, he has to buy the option, right? He has to pay the premium. So the break-even is basically the point which he starts being profitable on the option. So if you see here, the buyer starts losing money, right? So look at here. We are here on this spot, so he starts losing money because he has to pay the premium. So the risk is limited. The only risk that the buyer has is the risk of paying the premium, which is the $200. That's all the risk that he has. And then from here, if the stocks go down, then his profitability starts increasing. He's still unprofitable here, but then he reaches a point, which this point here, the break-even point, which now he's not making and he's not losing anything. That's the break-even point. He starts losing if it's $60. If the stock price goes beyond that, goes to 80, 70, he's losing. But if the stocks start going down and he reaches 58, now he's not making any money, but he's also not losing. So the break-even is just calculated by taking $60, which is the strike price in this case. And I even have the formula here. So you see the formula here on the bottom. So it's the strike price minus the option premium. So in this case, $60 minus 2. So we get to 58. And from here, if the stock, they keep going down, then the put buyer, he starts making more and more money. Now, the reward is limited because how further the stock can go down in these periods? Well, actually, how further the stock can go down anyways in any period? Well, it can just go down to 0. It's not going to go have like a negative share value, right? So the minimum is 0. So that's a limited reward. In this case, the limited rewards is just, it could go to 0 and then he gets the profit. It's going to be 60 minus 2, which is the option premium times 100. That's how much money he made. But in this case, we're just considering that the share price, it fell to 40. So how much money he would make? Well, in this case, at $40 that the stock price is right now, he's making $60, right? So this is actually the formula of profit at expiration. So this one is also this formula here that I'm showing to you. Okay, so $60 minus 40, which is the stock price right now, minus the premium that he paid. There is also commission. Okay, so we could include here the small charge for commission, and then times $100, and then you're gonna get $1,800. Okay, so this $1,800. Now, one important thing here is that in this case, I'm just considering the intrinsic value of the option. We're actually going to discuss intrinsic value and extrinsic value in a bit. But for now, I'm considering that at expiration, the extrinsic value of an option is 0. So it's just intrinsic value that's here. But whenever you're actually dealing with options, there is some extrinsic value that we're going to discuss what it is, because it's basically a hope value. Depends on time and volatility, there is still some additional value on the option. So he would be actually making 1,800 just if you're not considering the extrinsic value. But if he decides to actually sell the option contract that he has, he will even sell for a little bit of a higher price because of this additional extrinsic value. So this one is basically the minimum amount that he's getting. So this 60 minus 40 minus 2 times 100, which is 1,800, is basically the minimum amount that the put buyer would be getting by having acquired these contracts at the first place. Okay, so the reward in this case was 1,800, which is also limited by the zero value of the stock, which is very unlikely, but still it's a limited reward. In this case, he got $1,800. And what's the risk here? Is the risk he starts losing money, and then now he's making at $40, but he has to pay at the beginning a premium of 2, which 2 times 100 is $200. So what about the other scenario? Well, the other scenario is, let's say if the stock price went to 80. Well, in this case, they went to 80. This contract is worthless, because why someone would actually have this contract to sell the Nike shares at $60 if now the market is valued at 80? There is no point. So the option contract is just going to expire worthless. And at the end of the day, the buyer had to pay the premium. So he lost money in this case. Okay, so $40, the buyer made money, made 1,800. And now if the stock price is at 80, he wouldn't make anything. As a matter of fact, he would lose it. He would lose $200, which was the price of the premium that he paid. Now, as the seller, then the situation is different. If you think about the chart, it's like you flip the chart horizontally, and then you're going to have the seller chart. So the seller contract looks pretty much the same. The only difference is this first part here. The premium that was paid by the buyer of $200, it's received by the seller. Now, what about the chart? How does it work? Well, the buyer, he actually starts losing. He actually starts paying the premium. But the seller starts winning. He starts receiving the premium. And what's the reward of the seller? It's the premium. It's very limited. It's just the $200. Okay, that's the reward of the seller. That's all. Now, the seller has a limited risk. What is the risk here? Well, the risk is if the stock actually keeps going down. Because the same way as the buyer, so at $60, the seller is actually making money. But then there is the break-even point. Same thing as the buyer, is $58, okay, with 60 minus 2. So until $58 up, the seller is actually making money because he got the premium. But as the stock actually goes down, then he's going to start losing. So let's say in this case, if it goes down to $40, instead of making money that he was making at the beginning, he's going to be losing that. Remember that 1,800? He's going to be losing that amount. Right? So the formula here is going to be the strike price minus the stock price minus 2 times 100. It's the same formula. You get to 1,800, but in this case, it's going to be negative because he's losing money. Basically, what's happening here is that if the stock price goes down below 60, he's obligated to buy the shares at $60, even though the shares now are selling at $40. Okay, so he's just having this loss of $1,800 in the difference. Now, this depends if the buyer is going to exercise the option, right? So if it's below 60, if it's right at 60, the buyer has no incentive to exercise the option. Now, if it's below 60, the buyer can actually exercise the option, but usually it doesn't happen if it's very close to 60. Usually the only thing that is going to make the buyer exercise the option is if it's 60 minus the premium, which is 2. So if it's 58 or below that, then the buyer is going to go there and exercise the option. Of course, the option prices changes from time to time. And at the end of the day, it depends on the buyer, right? So the buyer can exercise the option anytime that is below 60. I'm just telling you, usually the example is that they're not going to exercise if the price that they have to pay for the premium is it's higher than just going there and buying the stock at the market. But he can exercise at any time below $60. That's all it is. That's actually the right that the buyer has. And then the seller is going to be obligated to fulfill these rights of the seller. So in this case, the seller, he has a limited reward of $200 of the premium, and he has a limited risk, right? So why it's limited? Because the minimum that the stock can go is $0, right? So 0, but he still has, if he has a contract there of $60, right, with the strike price, he's gonna actually have to buy the shares at $60 and just sell at 0, right? So sell for nothing. So that's the limited risk. Now, maybe you're actually asking, is it even worth that? Because if you look at this chart, it looks like the buyer is looking much better than the seller, right? Because the buyer has a reward that is much higher than the rewards that the seller is getting. But at the end of the day, the seller, he's the one that has the highest probability of making money, because the buyer, he can't bet on inertia of the stock. The stock needs to go down, and it's not just going down by little. He needs to go down beyond the break-even point for the buyer to start making money. Now, the seller, if the stock actually goes up, if the stock goes sideways, even if the stock goes down a little bit, but higher than the 58, which is the break-even point in this case, the seller is making money. And he's going to keep the premium anyways. And another situation that I wanted to think is that you want to buy, let's say that you didn't have this option contract. You will buy the 9 shares at $60 anyway, because that was the fair value. That was the stock price that you want to buy the company to hold for the long term. So now you're actually doing this, but getting the premium on top of that. And that's why I really enjoy being the seller whenever we talk about put options and even call options, because you can keep rolling over. The probability of the option expiring worthless is much higher. You can keep collecting cash, reducing your cost basis on the stocks you're going to buy in the future. And that's all it is. And if it happens that the stock goes down, I just get to buy a company there where you want to buy it anyways. Now let's jump in the other type of options, which is the call option. And let's actually go for a scenario. Let's say that you want to buy a company that you think that has a lot of momentum, a lot of growth coming up pretty soon. You really think that the stock is going to go up. But the only problem is that all your money is already invested on other companies, and you want to buy 100 shares of this stock that you believe that is going to go up pretty soon. So let's say that this stock is Nike and you want to buy at $60, but you want to buy 100 shares. So you need 60 times 100, you need $6,000 to actually acquire the position you want at $60 to have exposure to this growth that is coming pretty soon. But the thing is, you don't have 6,000 on your account right now. So what you can do is you can actually buy a option contract, a call option contract, and then from there, instead of needing $6,000 to get exposure to this growth, like you would if you actually bought the stock, you can just pay the premium, which in this case here I'm showing example as the premium being 2. So you just need $200 to actually get the same exposure as you would with $6,000. So with just little money, just $200, you can get the same profits of a person that is actually holding 100 shares, $6,000 of that stock. Now there is a catch here. The catch is that, remember, there is an expiration date. The thing is, if the stock just stays flat, or if the stock goes down, and then it doesn't move between this timeline that you put as expiration dates, then you're just losing money. You're just paying the premium. Now, the other situation is if you're right. Let's say that you had a strike price at $60, and then within this timeline, which in this case, in the example, you can see November 17th, let's say within this timeline of November 17th, the stock just went up. It went up to 110, 120, 130, maybe even 150. So let's consider 150. So let's say that you have the option at strike price at $60 and the stock is now at $150. So now what you can do is you can buy the stock at $60 and sell it for $150, which is what the market is valuing right now. So you can have these big profits. Or instead of doing that, and that's usually what happens, the same way that happens with the put options that I explained before, you can also do with call options. So if the stock goes up by a lot, instead of you actually handling the shares, buying at 60, selling at 150 or whatever price the market is, this option just became much more valuable. You bought the option price at a strike of $60, but then if the stock price goes up to 150, this option that you bought before becomes much more valuable to other people. Other people, they also want to buy Nike at $60 and sell at $150. So instead of handling shares, you can just sell the call option that you opened before, and then the other people, they are actually gonna pay you a premium for that contract. So you're actually gonna make money on this difference. Now, just going over the kind of the explanation behind it. So a call option is basically a contract that gives the buyer the right to buy 100 shares. So remember, these 100 shares is for one contract in US. One contract is equivalent to 100 shares. So 100 shares at a strike price before or on the expiration date. So the only thing that changed here from the put option is the fact that now the buyer of a call is actually buying 100 shares instead of selling on the other one. And just to help you memorize that, remember that whenever you're actually calling something, you are calling upon yourself. You're calling something to come closer to you. So you're actually buying the shares. So that's actually just to help you memorize it, right? So when you think about the different sides of the coin, you have the buyer, which the buyer is still paying the premium, right? In this case, he's paying the premium of 2, which is 2 times 100 for one contract. Remember that we talk about one contract? So one contract is equivalent to 100 shares. So he's paying 2 times 100, he's paying $200 for this contract, for this call option. So the buyer, he has the right to buy 100 shares from a seller at a strike price. So in this case, if you actually check this option here, so of course that the only thing that is going to change from a buyer to a seller is going to be here, right? So in this case, you talk about the buyer, you will be buy here, right? That's the only thing. So in this option here, you're basically going to have buy one, right? So for one contract, if one more contracts you could have, but it's basically one contract for 100 shares of Nike, that's the stock. The expiration date, same thing that works with the put options, is always the third Friday of the month. Whenever I did monthly, quarterly options, I always recommend you always trading options that are monthly or quarterly because it has more liquidity, has more open interest. We're going to discuss this later. But basically, this is the third Friday of the month. Of course, they will have the weekly options, which is always the Friday of the week. But always go for monthly and quarterly. It has more liquidity. The strike price, right, which is the reference price, $60 in this case. And then instead of puts, now we are dealing with a call option. And then the rest is pretty much all the same. So in this case, the buyer has the right to buy 100 shares of Nike from the seller at $60, paying $200 premium. And what the buyer wants at the end of the day? Well, we saw it. The buyer, if you actually buy a share, you're calling the shares to yourself, you want the shares to actually go up. That's all it is, right? So the buyer wants he makes money when the price goes up. And then he can exercise the option if that happens, if it goes up beyond the strike price of $60. Now, what about the seller? The seller is the opposite. He receives the premium. How much he receives? He receives, in this case, if there is one contract of premium of 2, he receives $200. and he's obligated. The only thing here is that he's obligated to sell 100 shares to the buyer at a strike price if the shares they actually go up. So let's consider scenarios here. So let's say that the strike price is $60. And then what happens if the stock price goes down? It goes to 40, or let's say that the stock stays sideways at 60. Then the seller doesn't have to do anything. He's just going to keep the premium. The buyer lost money because he had to pay that premium to the seller. Nothing happened. The option expired worthless. And why is that? Because in the side of the buyer, if he buys a call option, he has the rights to buy 100 shares, in this case of Nike stock, at $60. But what if the stock price right now is $50? Then he, instead of actually exercising the option in buying the stock at $60, he can actually go in the market and get it for $50. So why he would do that? That's why the option would expire worthless if the stock price goes sideways or if it goes down. Now, if the stock price goes up, then the seller is going to be obligated to sell 100 shares of Nike to the buyer at $60. And then he's going to still keep the premium. The seller always keeps the premium. No matter if the stock goes down, goes up, goes sideways, he always keeps the premium. The only thing is that in this case, in a call option, if the stock price goes up beyond the strike price, then the seller is obligated to sell 100 shares of Nike at that strike price of $60. So at the end of the day, the seller, he wants the price to go down or to stay flat, because then he can keep collecting those premiums. Now, if the stock goes up, is there any risk for the seller? There is no risk if the seller actually owns the shares. Because in this case, if you own the shares and you're actually selling a call, it means that you actually made profits already on the stock, and you're just in a point that if you sell it, it's fine. You're actually selling at profits, right? So the strike price that you sell on the option is already a strike price that is above the price that you actually bought the shares. So you're okay. If you sell it, you're actually still making money. You are maybe not making as much money if you actually held the stock and waited, right? So, but at the end of the day, maybe you sold the stock and you can acquire it again in a future dates, or you can even acquire other companies that are also at discount. So it also can be a win-win situation. But the only thing here is that you have to make sure that you own the shares. And that's why it's called selling cover calls. And this cover is because you actually own the shares. Because in this case, let's say that you're actually doing naked. And it's nothing, there's no pornography here. It's just the way it is. It's called naked. It's just because when you actually think about it, if you are a seller and you're actually selling a naked call, it means that you don't own the shares, and that's very dangerous. Because in this case, let's say that the Nike shares, it's your strike price $60, and let's actually go back to the example. Let's say that the stock price right now is $150. So although the strike price of your option is 60, the stock price is 150. You're gonna have to sell the stocks based on the option. You are obligated to sell 100 shares at the strike price of $60. So if you don't own the stock, you're gonna have to buy the stock at $150 and sell to the buyer at $60. So you bought it all the way in the top and sold it at $60. So this can be very dangerous. But now, if you actually own the stock, if you already have all the 100 shares, and that's what we recommend you to do, sell cover calls, own the amount of stocks that is needed on your cover call, on the call. So one call is 100 shares, right? So you should own at least 100 shares of Nike for handling one option contract. So 100 shares of Nike you already have. You already made a profit before, right? So the strike price already consider a profit. And then if the stock, let's say if the stock goes up beyond the $60, you sold it for 60, you make money, you can actually use this money to go for other opportunities in the market. So at the end of the day, it can also be a win-win situation for the seller. If the stock goes sideways, if the stock goes down, he keeps collecting premium. If the stock goes up, well, he can sell it, he would sell anyways, he's still profitable, and that's all it is. So if the stock goes up, the only important thing to keep in mind is that the option is gonna be exercised, but if the price of the stock goes down or stays sideways, then the option expires worthless, and the seller is always gonna keep the premium anyways. And some brokers, they can also simplify the option contracts, right? Like we saw with the put options, they also do with the call options. So you can even see here on the bottom that they can just simplify by simplifying the expiration dates. Remember that the expiration date is always going to be the third Friday of the month for monthly and quarterly options. So instead of putting November 17, 2023, they just simplify to November. And another thing is that they can use ads as a symbol or ads as words. That's all it is. Now, let's actually understand everything visually, right? So it's easier for us to see everything that we mentioned so far. We're going to see with the charts. So when you talk about call options, you have the buyer side and also the seller side, and the scenario is the same. You're basically talking about one option contract of Nike that is going to expire November 17, 2023. The strike price is $60. It's a call option and the premium is $2. Now for a buyer, the buyer, he starts paying the premium, so he starts losing money. How much premium he's paying? Well, the premium is 2. One option contract is equivalent to 100 shares. So 2 times 100 is $200. So it means that 2 times 100 here, the buyer is paying $200. So this is the limited risk of the buyer. That's all the risk that the buyer takes. He's actually paying this $200 upfront. So the strike price is $60. And then if the stock price start going up, let's say it start going 61 and then it reaches 62. When you reach the 62, this is the break-even point. This is the point that the buyer is not losing, but he's also not making any money. So this is basically 60 plus 2, which is the premium. It gets you $62. Now, from now, if the stock price keeps going up, let's say to 80, then the buyer is already making a lot of money. Any points that is beyond 62, the buyer is making money. How much money he's making? So for this case, I'm giving the example of $80. So $80, which is here, the stock price minus the strike price of 60 minus 2, which is the premium, the option premium, minus any commission that you have. In this case, I'm just not putting here on the math, but you can also put commission. It's very small amounts, depends on your broker. But in this case, let's actually just simplify. So 80 the stock price, 60 the strike price, 2 the premium, and then after making this math, multiply by 100 because it's 100 shares for one option contract. Then you're gonna have 1800. So this is actually the profit that the buyer made. And one thing that is interesting here is that his profit is unlimited. Different from the puts that there is a limited profit. Remember that why it's limited on the puts? Because the minimum that the stock can go is 0. But for call options, how much further the stock can go up? What's the profits that you can make? It's unlimited. The stock can keep going up, right? There is no limit on that. So in the case of a call buyer, the rewards is unlimited. Here I'm just give the example of 80, but it could be 90, it could be 200, 300, 500, as long as, of course, remember that there is the expiration date, right? So if the stock, let's say on November 17th is at 100, but then on November 18th is at 1000, it doesn't matter because the option expired at November 17th. So that's a consideration. So this is for the option buyer. What about the option seller? Well, in this case, you have this scenario here that the option looks like this, right? So the only difference is this part on top. Now, the premium that the buyer had to pay is the premium that the seller is going to receive on this call. So he's receiving $200. Now, what about these scenarios here? So let's actually consider the beginning. The beginning, the seller is receiving $200. So in this case, he starts being profitable. Now, what happens if the stock starts going up? So if it starts going up, you basically flipped the horizontal line here for the chart from the buyer to the seller. So in this case, he starts being profitable, but then if the stock starts going up, he starts losing money. No, well, he's still profitable until $62, which is the break-even point, which is 60 plus $2, which is the premium. But after the break-even point, he starts losing money. And in this case, the rewards that he gets is limited. It's just the premium, right? So it's a limited reward. But the risk is unlimited, meaning that the stock, it can keep going up. Like I said, this example here, I'll give you 80, but it could be 90, it could be 150, it could be 300. As long as the option doesn't expire on that particular date. So let's say that November 17th, the stock went to 1,000. That's the risk that the seller has. It's unlimited, right? There's no limitation on how much the stock can go up. And then in this case, the seller, the 1,800 that the buyer would be making, the seller would be losing, right? For a $80 stock price, which, so the math is this one, the same one that we looked before. So the thing here is that let's actually analyze the other scenario. Let's say that the stock price actually went down below the strike price. Well, in this case, you'll probably already figure it out. So let's say there's $40. So for $40, what happens to the seller? Well, the seller is just keeping the premium. That's the reward that he has. But what happens with the buyer? Well, the buyer, the only thing that happens with 40 is that he lost the premium. That's all it is. And then some people ask, why would I be a seller of a call option if my risk is unlimited? And this is why it's important for us to consider and for us to have the stock whenever you're actually selling this call. That's why it's called selling cover calls, and we're actually going to go much more in detail in our future class about it. But you have to, whenever you're actually trading calls as a seller, you have to sell cover calls, meaning that you have to own the stock. If you are trading one option, which is equivalent to 100 shares, you need to have at least 100 shares of this business. If you have two options, you have to have at least 200 options of this stock. Because in this case, let's say with Nike, let's say that I bought a long time ago, I bought Nike at 30. Well, but now I'm actually selling the cover call because I have, let's say, 100 shares of Nike, and I'm selling at 60. Well, I already made my profits. So if at the end of the day, the stock goes up beyond 60 and I have to sell it, it's fine, I'm still profitable, I own the shares. So the only thing that is happening here is that I'm capping my returns. So let's say that the stock price now is 70. Instead of me selling for 70, I'm going to have to sell for 60 because that's the option that I sold the call for. That's all it is. You're just capping your returns. But in the other scenario, if you didn't have the shares, then it's dangerous. That's something I don't recommend because you're going to have to buy for higher prices, whatever price the market is, and you're going to have to sell for cheap to the buyer, and the price they're going to have to sell for the buyer is the price of the strike or the strike price of the option. And I just want to go over a scenario with you that we even mentioned before, but I just want to go with a little bit more detail on the comparison between a call buyer and a stock buyer. So when you think about the call buyer first, this is the situation that we just saw it. So you're going to pay a premium. In this case, it's going to be $200, right? It's the same situation. The option price or the option premium is 2 times 100 for one contract, $200, as you can see here. And then this is going to pay upfront. So you start losing $200. But then if the stock actually goes up, after the break-even point, you're going to start making money. So here I'm considering the situation of $80. So $80 you saw before that is equivalent to $1,800. So it means that the risk is limited. What's the risk? The risk is just the one regarding the option premium that you have to pay at the beginning. But the reward is unlimited. It just depends on how far the stock can go until the dates, the expiration dates of, in this case, November 17, 2023. So in this case, you can see that with $200, you can actually have a profit. You can have unlimited rewards, but in this case, considering the $80 example, you can make $1,800 just with $200, meaning that you just made 900% return on investment during this time. So if we now jump to the situation of a stock buyer, let's consider the same scenario that you want to make $1,800 in profits. How many shares you need if you actually buy the stock instead of trading options? So in this case, you're actually gonna take 1,800, so this is the profit. The difference between where the stock is right now, the stock price we consider as being $80, the difference between 80 to 60, not considering commissions, there is no option premium, there is no 2 as well, it's just the difference between 80 and minus 60 minus the commission. Here we are not considering that. So you basically need 90 shares. So for the same $1,800 in profit, you need 90 shares of the Nike stock. So 90 shares, when did you buy it? You bought at the strike price, that the same strike price that the option buyer was actually trading. You bought the stock at the same price. So let's say that you bought at 60. So in this case, 90 shares times $60 per share, you had to invest 5,400. So for the same 1,800, you had to invest 5,400. So instead of being a return on investment of 900%, you just had a return on investment of 30%. And another thing to keep in mind is that you also had to invest much more money, right? So here you invested, if you check the difference between 5,400, which is how much the stock buyer invested, with the $200 that the buyer, the co-buyer invested, he just have to pay the premium. This is 27 times more. So for the same profits that the co-buyer got it, the stock buyer will have to put 27 times more money in this example to have the same amount of profit. And the difference on this chart is that, let's say that the stock price goes down to 40. What happens to the stock buyer? Well, the stock buyer, he starts losing money in the same proportion. So in this case, the difference between 60 to 40 is the same as the 80 to 60. So in this case, 60 to 40, he is also going to be losing 1,800. Now, the only thing here is that there is also no break-even point, because with a stock buyer, the moment that he buys a stock, if the stock goes up even by 10 cents or even by 1 cent, he starts making money. So there's no break even. The break even is the $60. So he actually goes, and then in this case, if the stock goes to $80, well, he's making 1,800, right? So very simple math. Everything is just a straight line, very simple to understand. But if you compare just looking at this, you can see that how many more benefits you have by buying a call. You can just use little money for the same amount of profits, and then in this case, you can have a much higher return on investment because we invest much less. So you can have let's say in this scenario was 1,100, you just invested 200, is 900% return. You have to invest much less money for the same profits. The stock buyer had to invest 27 times more money than the co-buyer, and at the same time with more risk. If you consider that if the stock price goes down, the stock buyer is actually going to be losing money proportional to the amounts that the stock price drops. So this one dropped from 60 to 40, so it's 1,800. But it could drop more. It could also go up more. So it's unlimited. For the stock buyer, it's just unlimited rewards and unlimited risk. Now, the benefits here of the co-buyer is that he still has the unlimited rewards, but he has a limited risk. If the stock goes down to 40, he is not going to he's not going to be down on 1,800. He's just going to be down on the 200 premium paid. Now, is everything flowers? It's always better to actually be a co-buyer instead of stock buyer? Of course not. And you can actually see here the difference, the pros and cons between a co-buyer and a stock buyer. So if we actually compare both, let's actually start with the option buyer. What are the pros here? Well, it's the fact that you don't need much invested for the same amount of profits, right? We saw that he just invested $200 for the same $1,800 profit that the stock buyer got it. And you also have a reduced downside risk. Now, on the side of the stock buyer, you wouldn't care much about the downside risk because you actually made your fundamental, your technical analysis, you invest in great businesses. And if you have many great businesses on your portfolio, we're going to have a class about portfolio in this course. So you're going to understand how to build the best portfolio for your case. But if you have a great portfolio with great businesses, you're going to perform well. You don't need to care much about the downside risk, because for great businesses, it keeps getting better and better over time. The intrinsic value or the fair value of the business keeps increasing. So although there are some temporary crashes and downsides in the markets, over the long term, the stock's going to go up. So there is no direct downside risk on this case. So when you actually look at the cons of the option buyer, then you have a couple options here. So the first one will be that the option expires and the odds are against your favor. Remember that when you are a buyer, there's just one thing that can happen that is going to make you money. So for a call option, the stock has to go up. If it stays, there is inertia. If the stock just goes sideways, or if the stock goes down, or even if the stock doesn't go up enough to pass the break-even point, you are losing money. And the same thing if you are, let's say, a buyer of a put option. In this case, you want the stock to go down. If the stock goes sideways, or if the stock goes up, or if it doesn't go down enough, right, to pass the break-even point, you are just losing money. So you're actually fighting against odds here. And at the same time, you also have a limited upside. Although it's unlimited rewards, like I mentioned to you before, it is still limited if you consider that there is an expiration date. So when you actually own the stock, the expiration date is determined by when you decide to sell it. But for the contract, it's determined by the expiration date of the contract. So it is more limited than just buying a stock and holding forever, right? And holding for a long time. Maybe not even forever, but just for a long time. And another thing is that your cost basis will always be higher than a stock buyer. Because remember, you have to pay the premium. So for a call buyer, the break-even point is going to be, for that Nike example, is going to be $60 plus the $2 premium. But for a stock buyer, it's different. The break-even point is the point that we actually acquire the shares for. If you acquire for $60, if it goes back just by a few cents, that's it. You're already making money. So the benefits of being a stock buyer is that there are no time constraints. There is a lower cost basis, real unlimited upside, because there is no limitation on the time. But at the same time, the cons is that the fact that you require more capital for the same profits, and also has a higher downside risk, which is limited by the fact that you are just owning great businesses. And just by the fact that with the buyer, you start losing, you are playing against the odds, you can keep paying premium, and you are counting on a quick movement of the stock for you to make money. It's much better for you to position yourself as a stock buyer than a call buyer, for example, or even a put buyer. So you're not going to see me actually playing around with buying puts or buying calls. I'm always going to be on the stock buyer side. But this comparison I'm making is a buyer of puts, a buyer of calls in comparison with a stock buyer. But I still trade options, but as a seller. So I always sell cover calls, I also sell cash secure puts, and then I also own the stocks itself. So that's what you're going to see me doing, and that's the way that I recommend you actually investing and boost your returns, by being a seller and by owning the stock itself. And since you're talking here about the option buyer and option seller, let's actually look at the pros and cons of each side of the coin. And one thing that is super important here is to understand that if you're owning a stock or if you're trading options, it's super important that you just do it with great businesses. Don't do it with penny or risk stocks. Don't own penny risk stocks. Don't trade options with this type of stocks. You're just gonna deal with great businesses. Now, when you talk about the option buyer, let's actually start with the pros. So the first one is that you can get much higher rewards if the stock price moves in your favor. So whenever I talk about buying a call, you want the stock to go up. If it goes up higher than the break-even point, you can make a lot of money, much more than the option seller. Same thing if you actually buy a puts and the stock goes down below the break-even point. You can make much more money than just the option seller that at the end of the day, they just collect the premium. You also have reduced downside risk on the fact that with the buyer, you are just paying the premium. That's all the risk you are taking, different from the seller. Now, when you talk about the cons, The biggest con here, which is a pretty big deal to be honest, is the fact that you are playing against all odds. You are playing against time, right? Because you have the expiration date. You are playing against the inertia, right? Because at the end of the day, you need the stock to move quickly to the side that you want. In a call, you need the stock to move quickly on this timeline of the expiration dates beyond the break-even point. And the same thing for the puts. You want the stock to go down beyond the break-even point within these timelines. So you are playing against all odds. That's why many of the options, they expire worthless, because the seller is the one that usually is going to be winning, because the probability of the option expire worthless is much higher than to be exercised. So if you think about the option seller now, the odds are in his favor because he's playing with time and also the inertia, right? So if the stock, let's say, moves sideways, or if the stock moves to the other side that the buyer doesn't want in a call, if the stock goes down, in a put, if the stock goes up, or if the stock goes sideways, he already collects his premium. He's fine. He just keep rolling over, and just keep making money. And although there is a higher downside risk for options, it's not really true, because at the end of the day, you're going to be investing on great businesses. When, let's say, as a puts seller, if the stock goes down below that point, you can just buy a great company. And when you are selling a cover call, you already own a great company and you already made profit, so you're just selling it. So there is no direct risk if you are doing it the right way. If you are actually selling a cover call, not a naked call. If you are selling a cash secure puts, not a naked puts. So as long as you're doing the right way, there is no real risk. But one thing to consider is also unlimited profits when you think about the cons. But because at the end of the day, you're just collecting the premium. You don't have the same upsides as the buyer. But one thing to consider is that small gains, they lead to big rewards. If you actually keep doing this strategy, the option keep expiring worthless, you keep collecting the premium. Even if the option is exercised, you can keep the premium. So you're always making money, no matter what. And if it expires worthless, you can just keep doing. And at the end of the day, this is gonna keep adding up. And you can even buy many shares of the business that you want for free just by doing this strategy, depending on how long you are doing, and even how many option contracts that you are handling. And this is pretty much the summary of all the type of options. If you are a seller, if you are a buyer, if you are doing puts, if you are doing calls, this is the summary for each of the types. And the type that is most important for us value momentum investors are those ones as the seller. So these ones in the bottom here. So this is the one that we actually have to memorize, and we're gonna talk a lot about it in your next classes on how to sell cover calls, sell cash secure puts, and you're just gonna be on the side of the seller, collecting those premiums, working as an insurance company. So just going over quick, just to wrap up this class, you actually have, let's say, the buyer side. You can just see the buyers and the sellers on this side, and the puts and the calls, they are in the top here. So if I'm actually a puts buyer, I'm dealing with this first one here. And this one, I have a limited risk of paying the premium. And then from here, if I'm a put buyer, I want the shares to go down. If the shares go down a lot, it means that I make more money, but it needs to go down beyond the break-even point. And so I'm bearish on the stock. If it goes down, I make money. Now, if it goes sideways, if it doesn't go down enough, passing the break-even point, or if it goes up, then I just pay the premium for nothing. Okay, so I have the right, as a put buyer, I have the right to sell 100 shares to the seller at the strike price. Now, if I'm actually a put seller, which is basically the second scenario here, then I'm obligated or required to buy 100 shares from the buyer at the strike price if the shares actually go below the strike price of $60. So in this case, I start making money up front, which has a limited reward, which the reward is actually the premium that I collected, and I also have a limited risk. Remember that even for the buyer, in this case, he has a limited rewards. It's limited because the minimum amounts that the stock can go is zero. It can't go negative, right? So the minimum amount is actually $0. So for the buyer, it has the limited reward, and for the seller, it's going to be the limited risk. In this case, if it goes down to 40, you're actually losing $1,800. Okay, so for a seller, whenever you're selling a put, for you to actually keep collecting premiums, keep doing this strategy, you want the stock to go up or sideways. So you are bullish on the stock. Now, when you talk about calls, you can see this scenario here. So let's say you are buying a call. So you have the right to buy 100 shares from the seller at strike price, meaning that you want the stock to go up. You are bullish on the stock. So if you are bullish, it means that if the stock passes the break-even point, you start making money. In this case, if it goes to 80, you can make $1,800. But if it actually just goes sideways, if it doesn't go up and off beyond the break-even point, or if it goes down, then you just paid the premium for nothing. You paid that $200 here, which is a limited risk and unlimited rewards. The stock can skyrocket to any price as long as within the expiration date, but it's an unlimited reward. Now, when you talk about the call seller, which is this fourth option here, you are required or obligated to sell 100 shares to the buyer at the strike price if the stock goes up beyond the strike price. So in this case here, it's 60, and then whenever you actually sell the call, you upfront already get $200. Okay, so this is the limited reward you have, but you have an unlimited risk, which is the fact that the stock can just keep going up. And then if it goes up to 80, you're actually going to be losing $1,800. Now, why it's so good to be a seller? Because you're always going to be collecting premium, and at the end of the day, although you see that it looks like in these charts that the risk is much higher, at the end of the day, it's not. Because as a put seller, you can buy great companies at great prices, the price they already wanted, but on top of that, you are getting the premium. Whenever you actually sell a call, you have to sell a cover call. In fact, the fact that you already own a great business, you already made profit on it. So if you sell it, you're still going to have your profits. You just kept the returns that you had, but still, you kept the premium. You can get the cash, reinvest on the same business on a better opportunity, or reinvest on another business that has a great reward. Whenever you made the fundamentals, the technicals, it looks like it has a great potential. So I believe that we cover a lot in this class. We're actually going to talk more about options in our next ones with more examples, going more in detail over this. Whenever we talk about selling cover calls, selling cash secure puts, you're going to look more in detail on how you can do all of that, and also on the broker. So excited to see how you can boost your returns using options. See you in the next class.